The following podcast contains spoilers, adult language, and some spicy olives for a spicy lady.
Those are spicy olives.
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. Evil is coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, a horror apocalypse entertainment podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Diana.
And I'm Roberto. No, I'm Steve. How are you?
I'm Stefano. This week we'll be discussing episode 3 of the 3rd season of The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon. Title of this week's episode is El Sacrificio, which, for those that are playing at home, means the sacrifice.
Wait, what?
What? Which is funny because it's funny because the true full meaning of the episode did not become clear until the last 2 minutes. Just felt
what?
like, oh, what? I felt like they called it that because I'm like, oh, it's the fallout of, blah, 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 and Alba's going to have to go, and they're going to have to deal with those consequences and whatever. No. Something else entirely happened. Something totally different. All right, so before we get into our individual thoughts on the episode, and discuss it at length, because that's what we do here, let's just quickly do like a quick first impressions. How did we feel about this episode? And I went first for the finale for Fallout, but then Steve and I went back and forth in last week's episode because we covered 2. So technically, it's Steve's turn again. So Steve, episode 3, what are your thoughts on El Sacrificio?
I won! Yay! This we were talking about a little bit before we started here, and this episode was okay. I liked it. I did. I liked it. It was well made. It was well acted. I thought the writing was good, but it just didn't really grab me. Yeah. I mean, it was very much like a filler, like. It's like they literally had like a laundry list of things they had to sort of check off, right. To keep the plot or to like kind of set up the plot. So it's like, okay, we have to have Daryl now start repairing the boat. So, he goes off and does that. And then of course we get the kid, Roberto, he, is like, I'm going to help you, but only if you take me and Justina with you to America. And so that is in motion. And then you have Carol back in the town. And of course, Daryl is repeatedly tell her, do not get involved. Do not get involved, And what does Carol do as soon as he leaves? She gets involved, right? And so then that happens, and then of course you get all this stuff with Justina, and she does a little what is like the rule of thumb with like your relatives? Don't go looking in like their like closets and stuff. I mean, it's like, hello, no.
Yeah. That was
but she does, and of course she has a revelation that is really not all that. I mean, like everything that happened in this episode, I literally was like, okay,
that tracks.
Yeah, so again, I liked it. I thought there was some fun, visual stuff in it and so on. We'll talk about it and when we get to our points. But overall, I was really just kind of like, when it was over, I was just sort of like, oh, so what else is on? I mean, it was just, I don't know. I'm hoping that this was the only one we're going to get like this, and that the rest of them are going to kind of crank it back up again. But we'll have to see. And looking at the scenes for next week, it looks like the extras from Conan the Barbarian come back, and we get a lot more fighting and lots of battle sequences and catapults and flaming explosive objects and stuff. So I'm hoping that next week we're going to be a little bit better. But overall, liked it. Perfectly good episode. Just really kind of didn't grab me at all. I just kind of went, yep, okay, good, that's done. So what'd you think?
Yeah. Like you said, we talked about this a little bit before where you got started, and I am in complete agreement. And again, caveat to the listeners, it was not by any means a bad episode. There were a lot of good things that happened. And one of the things we really enjoy about this show in particular is, first of all, it looks beautiful. It always looks beautiful. These are some interesting new characters. And so they're, we're every day, every episode learning a little bit more. And they're doing some decent character development, but they're just doing it in a way that's not like grabby, like they're not pulling you in, like sucking you in. They're just sort of like giving you the layers of the person. But I'm right there with Steve. Like I felt like when scenes were over, I was like, oh yeah, that happened. And I didn't have a lot of like, ooh, I can't wait to see what happens next. And the moments of like, danger, were they ever really moments of danger? I don't know. They're like Jacina, exactly. Never go looking in a cabinet. Well, that's not yours.
No.
Because you never know what you're going to find. And yeah, just, I felt like, yes, it was a filler episode. It did give you some interesting things, some cool visuals, like you were saying. It always does look beautiful. We got a little bit more information about these characters that we're getting to know. It is good character development. It just wasn't anything that made you go, I can't wait for the next thing. Like, ooh, let's talk about that more. It was more like they said the thing, they'd go away, they'd come back to those same characters a little bit later, and you're like, that's it? That's all we're gonna... Okay, all right, that's fine. Not in a bad way, but just in a... It just was. It just was. The episode just was. That's all I would say. And again, not bad, just not my favorite of the season so far. And when we rank all 7, when we're done, I bet this will probably be the one I like the least. We will see. Hopefully, and like you said, next week it looks like the action at least should be ramping up a little bit based on the images we've been given. So hopefully this is just like, this was their pause in the middle where they needed to sort of gather themselves. We learn a little bit more about the people, and then everything else will sort of catapult us forward into more action.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, some more action and some more, adventure and, all of that good stuff. So yeah, good episode, but I am hoping for better next week is pretty much all I could say about that. So, all right. So let's get into talking about the details of the episode. But before we do that, we're going to remind you about what we were expecting in this week's episode with a quick episode description. And Steve, that's all you. So take it away.
All right. Well, this week's episode is being brought to you by...
I have accomplished many things in my lifetime. By making some questionable decisions, I've achieved success and prestige. I've become the mayor of the beautiful city of Solaz del Mar, and because of my position, I've been able to enjoy the best that this post-zombie apocalypse world has to offer. By making an alliance with a brutal regime, I've acquired the taste for the finer things in exchange for just giving a few of our young women away on a yearly basis. And in the process, I have lost all my integrity by rigging the pig race to protect my niece. But I still value and cherish the memories of my homeland and its unforgettable taste. Fetty cognac. Sure, it tastes like shit, but what else are you gonna drink?
Wow, I really want to try some of that. I think, it looks delicious.
I'm not usually a fan of cognac, so I feel like the name cognac makes it feel to me like it's going to taste differently than it does. Most of the brown liquors, as it were, the whiskeys, the brandies, the whatever, they just all taste like fire on my tongue. I just am not a fan of most hard liquors. Yes. But if he wants to tell me about his cognac with his really, fancy accent, that's fine.
Yeah, but at the end, they tell you right up front it tastes like crap, but what else are you going to drink?
It's true. It's the apocalypse. There's not much left except this cognac.
That's right. So, I think that would mean it would probably just fit right into your expectations and you would be a huge fan. I don't know. I'm just
maybe. We'll see.
All right. So, So the episode again in question that we are reviewing is for The Walking Dead, the Daryl Dixon, The Book of Daryl and Carol in El Spano. And the episode is 3.3 El Sacrificio, which, as Diana was very, very kind to translate for us, means the sacrifice. And the description we have is Daryl focuses on getting home while Carol gets more involved in Solas Del Mar. And that is your episode description. So there you go. Thank you so much, episode description writers.
Yeah, it's pretty much says it all. I mean, that's all you can really say about. That's it. So let's talk about our writers and director for episode 3 as well.
Well, the good news is that the writers and directors for episode 3 are the exact same writers and directors for episodes 1 and 2. So
how about that?
Yeah, I don't know if that means well, they've obviously got to change directors because when I did my research for Daniel Percival last week, it listed the number of episodes he's directed for this show. Remember, we were kind of marveling at it because it was like 13 episodes of Daryl Dixon. And the first 2 seasons, there were like 16 episodes total, right? So, so that means that, just doing the simple math, that he can't be the director for every episode of this season. But we'll have to see as far as the writers if Jason Richmond and David Zabel just are running and writing everything, or if we're going to see some of the other executive producers that are on the show, take over. Will Angela Kang pen anything? There's a gal named Shannon Goss, who I believe has written some of the episodes in previous seasons. Will she write any? We'll have to see. But for this week, the writers are, again, Jason Richmond and David Zabel, and we talked about them last week. Jason Richmond, he did stuff for the Stumptown for Lucky 7, Detroit 187. He wrote the screenplay to Bangkok Dangerous. David Zabel, he wrote for Stumptown, Lucky 7, Detroit 187, and he also got his start way back in the ancient times, in the before times, on ER. And again, David Zabel is the showrunner for this show. And then the director, again, is Daniel Percival. And like I just said, he directed a total of 13 episodes of the Daryl Dixon series. He also has directed episodes of The Man in the High Castle, a British show called Strike Back, and he has like 23 total directing credits over the last 15, 20 years or so. So obviously a dude with a lot of experience. So that, again, is our writer and director, and we will have to see next week if I will just say the same thing or if we'll have new people to talk about. So.
It'll be interesting.
Yes.
So the very first scene that we get is the royal guy is called El Alcazar, but his name is really like Guillermo, but his title El Alcazar, and he is just like stomping into the town. He does not look happy, that is for sure.
No.
So he lays it all on the table about his guys that are missing, and we get the whole story. And of course, Fede is like, of course we will help you however we can, and it's great because since Fede doesn't know anything about it, because clearly Daryl did all of this, he's acting shocked, and it's not acting. He really doesn't know what happened. And but he's not stupid either. So after Alcazar leaves the room, he tells his guys, he's like, he said that his men were injured by the water, and the Americans saved Roberto and Justina by the water where they were attacked, and his guy is like, you think they're related? He's like, yeah. So he basically gives them all kind of like their marching orders of like, look into this, find out what happened, get the story of what's happening, and then he's basically like, make sure these Americans leave. Like, it's time for them to go.
The sooner they leave, the better, is what he says. Yeah. And
yeah.
I think you left out
it's
the most.
affecting them. Oh, go ahead.
You left out the most important thing, is that the Alcazar shows up and Fetty gets out some of his amazing cognac, and Alcazar's like, "Do you think I'm here for a drink?" And just kind of reads him the riot act, and like you said, it's all about the guys who have I was going to use air quotes, vanished.
Yes.
And so when he gets done kind of saying what's wrong, he then points out to Fetty that there are other towns that have chicas in them, and kind of
it's all
brings
threats
up,
and everything. Yeah
and and he kind of brings up the fact that, like, when they first got in the town, the one like guy came out and yelled at him like, where's my daughter? And then you have Carol kind of questioning the whole giving away the children because of the race thing going on at the festival. And so he's sort of kind of like one of those veiled threats, or maybe not so veiled, of like like, I can go somewhere else and be just as happy, you know what I mean? So if you like your place here, if you like being part of the Alliance, you better start shaping up. But then he does drink the cognac, and then he, of course, points out, like the ad said, that, it tastes like shirt, and what are you going to do? So, but yeah, I did like that Fetty then, after he leaves, is he's like, telling his dudes, he's like, start looking, we have to give off the appearance that we're doing everything we can to to find out what happened to those guys. But at the same time, and I mean, I got the sense that he totally did the math and is like, look, obviously those guys ran into his niece, and the Americans saved them, because that's the story that the niece and Roberto have told, and that meant that they killed those guys, but they didn't know who they were. And he, you notice his first thing wasn't, well, let's turn the Americans over to Alcazar. It was more of, let's start our little investigation, but at the same time, let's get those two out of here.
Right.
Kind of like shoot them out. And just so I kind of take that to mean that, Fetty certainly done some questionable things, probably, to become the mayor, that I think he still ultimately, has a bit of a sense of right. He's like, what, they saved my niece, I will do what I can to have to kill them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think too, like, I think some of his hesitation too is, part of what comes with being like a chosen city for the ofrenda is the protection too. So what would happen if they didn't have the protection anymore? Who knows? Yeah. And if they didn't have the protection, would they themselves be able to come into the town and like take what they wanted and blah blah blah, like very Negan like? And based on what Justina finds at the end of the episode, he's clearly, he's rigged the ofrenda for the last 5 or 6 years. So, that doesn't, as much as he was coming from a place of love to, keep his own niece safe, it's a fraud on all of his people, and so he if it could just be that he's done, but maybe there's other things that he doesn't want revealed. He doesn't want people to find out the inner workings of what he does every day. But having Carol and Daryl there reflects poorly on him. It's, he, in a moment of weakness, let them stay, and their usual, guideline is they don't let visitors stay at all. It's just not allowed. Right. And this is a perfect example of why they don't do that. So, he's got to get them out of there. It's bad for their town. It's bad for their relationship with the El Alcazar. So it's like it's all bad news. They have to go. They have to go.
Yep. Time has come. It's what do they say? Fish and company. After a couple of days.
Yeah.
They stink, right? They all stinks. So.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, he makes that proclamation about, saving, go make sure they need to go soon. Like, they can't stay here. That the next scene that we pivot to is Carol actually apologizing to Antonio. She feels bad because she spoke out at the dinner the night before, and she's embarrassed. She may have said something bad and made it look bad for him, and Antonio's trying to make her feel like it's not that bad, and she's like, well, I'm a guest. Like, she finally admits it. She's like, I'm a guest of you all, and I, basically, she doesn't say it out loud, but she's like, as a guest, I shouldn't have said anything. And he says to her something really interesting, which he says, because she's a guest, maybe she doesn't have to keep quiet, because, the people who live there can't really rock the boat, but maybe someone who doesn't live there could maybe poke holes in their, way of life a little bit. So I think that's interesting. But the whole time, Daryl is right there and he's listening to the whole thing. And when Antonio leaves, he's just like, yeah, so we're leaving, right? Like you were saying in your quote too, like, don't get involved. Like, we're out of here, right? We're just gonna get some supplies and we're getting out of here. And and Carol's trying to be like, well, I don't know. And go ahead. No, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say that not only is he like, we're getting out of here, he's literally like taking everything that he can from this poor guy.
God, yeah.
Like, he tells her like, hey, figure out a way to get one of those, and they have like solar panels that they have attached to the side of the house, and she's like, you want the solar panel? He's like, yeah. He's like, everything that we can get, we're taking. You know what I mean? He's just like, it's just so obvious that he is like, we are so leaving. You know what I mean? And again, he did just kill 3 guys the night before, so and based on what happened in France just like last month, for him, I'm sure he's like, look, let us not get involved here. Okay. You know what I mean? It's like, let's just go. And I wrote down the lines, and she of course is like you said, just kind of had this kind of exchange with Antonio, and Daryl can see the wheels turning in, right, about it's not sitting well, the whole Frenda thing and the whole giving away your children, and you know what I mean, it's like, Carol, don't like what we were saying last week, like, don't do it, Carol, like, zip it, Carol, zip it. And so this time he goes, just remember, Carol, hot dogs. and then he leaves the room, and she says, Daryl, and he's like, no, that's what we're about now, eating them forking hot dogs. which I love, because it brought back the hot dogs in a can, so hopefully that is something that's going to make it through the whole season here. But and so then they kind of continue, and he gives her the whole thing about, take the solar panel and everything, and she's again questioning this, like, really, we're just going to steal all this stuff? And he goes, look, we're going home now, let's try and stay out of everybody's shit. And then as he leaves and is walking away and she's there, you hear him in the distance go, hot dogs, just like, focus, Carol, focus, but yeah, I appreciated that a lot, because although it's like, Daryl, Carol, right? You've been around her for a long time. Do you really think she's not going to get involved? I mean, it's just like, oh God. If anything, he should have said, you're coming with me to help fix the boat.
Because you can't be trusted to stay here by yourself.
Right, you can't be, because it's clearly, if I leave you alone, bad things are going to happen. And when we get to the episode, there's going to come a moment where I'm going to say, see, bad things happened. So
yeah.
But I love that when he mentioned the hot dogs, and I'm like, hell yeah, Daryl, focus on the fork and hot dogs. Good idea.
And it's cool though that they actually had those, because he was able to give her something concrete, like, focus on the hot dogs. Don't get pulled into the emotions of everything that's going on around here. Right. Just hot dogs. That's it. There was a great moment too where, Carol's clearly sliding into feeling guilt about a lot of stuff. And it's funny, because when they're talking, it's clear, I'm surprised, but it appears like Daryl told her what he did. so that, she wouldn't be surprised, which I think is really cool, because usually most people would just be like, yeah, I'll just keep that to myself. But it's clear he told her about it. And then she continues to talk about being uncomfortable, and he's like, well, I did what I had to do. And she's like, no, about, the ofrenda, I'm, it's good that Justina doesn't have to go anywhere. And she's like, but what about Alba? And he goes, oh, yeah. Who the fuck is Alba? He's just like,
it's so great.
He's so, now whether he does or doesn't know who Alba is, it doesn't matter. He's trying to say to her, Alba doesn't matter. We need to get out of here. That should be our focus. It shouldn't be who this person is. There's nothing we can do about that. Right. So.
Right. Well, yeah, and I think it's kind of twofold. It's, on the one hand, it's, there certainly is a clock ticking, because he did kill those guys, and it's, eventually they're going to be found, right? So like you said last week, somebody's going to count up the number of ghouls in that one pen and go, hey, there's a couple of extra ones in here. You know what I mean? Yeah. And we actually get that shot, right, of the guy, the guy from the Hummer, and he's, all ghouled out in that pen, cage, whatever it is. And it's just like, look, it's only going to be a matter of time until somebody walks by and sees that dude, right? Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen, you would think. And he knows that. Daryl knows that. And so he's like, look, there is a clock ticking. We have to move. And then there's this other thing of, like you said, and that is, Carol, you will get involved in stuff because that's what you do. And that is the wrong choice in this case. We just need to go. We just need to get out of here. And then the third thing is, they're like on the hospitality of these people that is very, very limited. Like you said, they don't normally take in strangers at all. And yet they've given them, what'd they say, 2 days, right? That was the agreement initially. And that was just so she could recover from her fever. And, she looks pretty damn recovered. Why are they not leaving? Right? It's like, come on. So he's like, we only have a finite amount of time to fix the boat and get the hell out of here. Let's just do it and leave. So, yeah. An interesting beginning. And I love the hot dogs. I thought that was really fun.
Yeah. Agreed. And I think right about here is where it breaks for the credits, right?
I think so. Yeah. I think what happens is Daryl leaves her and he hooks up with, I think we get the scene where Roberto gives Justina the little compass or whatever, the little trinket that she wears. Yeah. And then she's of course feeling bad about Alba and is still, kind of moping about that. And then Daryl and Roberto leave because Roberto, like, I know someone that can fix your boat. So they're off. And as they're walking by, there's a couple of guys that are out looking for the missing guys armed. Yep. And Daryl asks, what's that all about? And Roberto says, yeah, a couple of Alcazar's men disappeared last night and they're looking for them. And of course, Daryl's like, no, they're probably drunk and they'll wake up and be fine. And then it cuts to the pen and we see the dude, the guy, and he's all ghouled out. And then I think it cuts to the credits, to the opening sequence. Yeah.
And we wanted to make sure, and the reason I brought it up and we're so specific about talking about it is we realized after we finished talking about the 2 episodes last week that we didn't talk about the change to the opening credits. But since last week was a marathon, ridiculously long episode, it's fine that we didn't do it last week, so we'll cover it this week. Change to the opening credits again. Which I love when they do this and they just try and incorporate something different every season, and it's really wonderfully done. It's these all these different, inspired by like these Spanish paintings, and they are all like, there's, they're sort of melting into ghouls and things like that, or, it's just visually really beautiful the way it's done. It's definitely very Spanish. You totally get that sense when you watch it, and it really, really, really fits the new season. I really liked it. What about you? What do you think of the new opening?
Yeah, I did too. I like the fact that they we incorporate in actual images of both Daryl and Carol, although they're now like, if Daryl and Carol were drawn by or painted by like Spanish masters. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so like when it says Norman Reedus, we get like a portrait of Norman Reedus, on the screen.
Yeah.
And same thing with Carol, when Melissa McBride's name comes up. And then I particularly liked how they took some like paintings of just regular people, but they're like from Spanish history, so they have on, all kinds of, kind of antiquated clothing, if you will, and you see them and they're all there, and then their faces, like it kind of like the paint melts and kind of drips down and they become ghouls. They're very skull like, and I thought that was a really interesting approach. And like you said, like almost all the paintings kind of have that melting effect, like as they're kind of dissolving from one image to another. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. And very, very striking, and with the music and everything that they have, which is still kind of the Daryl Dixon theme we've seen in the first two seasons. It's still basically there, but they've definitely like Spanished it up. So I think it's all very fitting for what we've seen of the show so far. So yeah, I big fan of it. We don't quite get the Fallout sort of like connection to the episode thing that it always did, but I enjoyed the credits.
Yeah, it's really cool. I just think, excuse me, anytime you can do something that's that visually interesting, and the only purpose it really serves is to give you the credits, really. I like that. It's a nice extra that you get, because it just adds to the whole artistry of the season. And it's great that we're talking about it this week, because in this week, Antonio makes this great speech about art and having something to pass on to children when this is all over. And art is part of that. When we saw that in Paris, when at the nightclub he had like all of those famous paintings,
right,
and was holding on to them, because somebody has to hang on to that stuff. So I just think it is interesting we're talking about it now, considering the topic in the episode about this. So
yeah, cool.
All right, so don't mind me. A frog went and died in my throat.
Aww.
Yeah,
poor little frog.
Poor froggy. So prior to the credits, we do get the beginnings of the of Roberto and Daryl together, but the the follow-up of that is that he's taking Daryl somewhere to before they go to the boat. He's like, I know someone that can help you, and he's like, oh, okay, all right. And so they go there, and it's this really cool lighthouse location, really sort of secluded and all by itself. And it really made me sit and think about, lighthouse, that's a really good zombie apocalypse place to hide. Because most lighthouses have their homes and everything, and the living quarters are up a few levels. They're not usually on the ground floor, because they have to be right by the light and man the light. But anyway, so I just went on a little tangent when they showed the lighthouse. I thought it was really cool. But they get up to the lighthouse area, and Roberto makes his little gesture towards the gate and is like, I have olives. I have olives for you. Hello. I have olives. Which is a great thing to give, because I love olives. So I was like, ooh, I'd come to the gate for a big old jar of olives.
Even the spicy ones with a little bit of paprika?
Sure, why not?
All right.
Why not? And so I believe the woman's name is Valentina, and she shows herself, and there's this great moment where Daryl's like, this is your boat captain. This lady's your boat captain.
Is your sailor, is what he kept saying.
Is your sailor, and she's like, this lady was a captain of cruise liners for years. And I love that she takes a moment. She goes, and you know who were always the rudest passengers?
I know.
And when she started to say it, I was like, oh, she's going to say Americans. She's totally going to say Americans.
That's right. It's going to be stupid Americans, isn't it?
Yeah, because, we apologize, world, because we are very aware that we are the worst.
That's right.
When it comes to traveling to any country, we are so stupid. We're so entitled. We're the worst. I'm glad that they got a little dig in.
Rubes.
Yeah, who expect everybody to speak English.
Exactly.
So I was really pleased that she was able to get a little dig in there. And she's trying really hard to be like, not be like negative, like I can't help you, but she's like, she's basically like, I don't know if I can help you. And she's like, Roberto's like, I brought you the olives. And she's like, I love the dig that she makes where she's like, oh, they're spicy. And he's like, yeah, the last El Alcazor brought in some paprika. And she's like, oh, spice in exchange to take away our daughters for forever. Feels fair. She made just like some comment about like, that seems like a good exchange, So clearly she's she's has negative feelings towards the ofrenda as well. And so
Daryl's like, oh great, another one.
yeah. But she's like, she's basically trying to like wheel and deal. And she's like, well, I'm short on gunpowder right now. And he's like, well, how much? She's like, however many kilos.
5 kilos.
And he doesn't bat an eyelash, and he's like, he'll help you. And Roberto's like, what?
Wait, what now?
I will? Yeah. And then she's like, well, we can't, like, I can't help you. Like, I can't go anywhere. Like, I'm waiting on my truck to be fixed. And then the guys who are with her are like, oh yeah, we fixed it. And they're like, oh, okay. And then she goes over and she kisses both of them really big on the lips. Like, uncomfortably so.
Well, the fact that both Daryl and Roberto are like looking at each other like, what?
Yeah, what's happening here? What are we watching?
Mm-hmm.
So clearly there's some polyamory going on there, which we're not judging.
When she kisses the first guy and then she moves to kiss the second guy, the first guy gets that big grin on his face.
Yeah. I kind of like that stuff like makes me uncomfortable, so I like looked away. So I'm like, I don't want to watch. But it's not because of the polyamory part. It's in that moment, Daryl and Roberto were uncomfortable, and I always feel that uncomfortableness that even though it's a fictional character, and I feel uncomfortable for them, so I look away. But yeah, that's interesting. The thing that I think is most interesting about all of that is I really hope that we see Valentina again, because if not, that's a lot of real unnecessary plot stuff for someone that we may not ever see again, which is entirely possible. They went and got that rudder, and they were sort of driving back. It was a little dark. It's not clear if they were going back to her or if they were all finished with going to her and they were heading home when we saw them. So it seems like they still have to go back to her, but I'm not sure. And like I said, I really hope that we see her again with all of this,
Oh yeah,
character layers.
She's gonna come into play again. I got the sense that they were going back to the town at the end of the night there when it was dark, and he was telling Roberto about Ohio, and that they're like the next day they will go back out and return her truck, and that's when she and her guys are gonna help fix the boat, because the boat is surprisingly close to the lighthouse. Yet when Daryl was, and Carol first washed ashore, they didn't see the lighthouse because,
Right.
why would you? But anyway, it's very close, and so my guess is they'll go back and she's going to then help them with the repairs, because as handy of a guy as Daryl is, he knows jack about fixing boats, and so
Right.
she is the one who has the years and years of serving on boats, being on boats, using boats, and hopefully can fix it. And because it's been made apparent that she is not a big fan of what's going on with the town and the Alcazar, I'm guessing she's going to eventually, be part of the Rescue Justina team, which undoubtedly will be formed in one of the future episodes here.
Oh, for sure.
And
for sure.
So yeah, I would be very surprised if we don't see her again. I think, like you said, there's way too much development of her as a character to only have that 1 or 2 scenes that she had. So yeah. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised that she will be back.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I really hope so.
Yeah.
So, she offers, okay, I've got the boat, I've got the truck, that is, so I can go see your boat and take a look at it. It's great because she's saying things out loud in English, but she's saying like cutting and obnoxious things to Roberto in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's like, he's like, oh, it's a sailboat, and she's like, no wonder why he's lost, and like, like these little things under her breath, where she's like, oh my god, like, who is this guy? So they go in her truck to go take a look at it. And in the meantime, we sort of pivot back to Solaz de Mer. And Antonio has this really nice little scene with Carol. He comes across her and he can see that her shirt has a little blood on the back. Mm-hmm. So where her wound is, she's bleeding through. So he offers, let me help you change your bandage. Because it's on like her shoulder blade. She can't really reach it.
No.
So he's in the midst of helping her out and doing all of that. And she's asking questions about him, like keeping conversation going. And then she goes just slightly a little too far. And she makes a comment. She asks a question about his wife, and then asks a question about his face is a little burned. It looks like he had some type of injury or burn on his face, so he's got some scarring over his eye. And she makes a comment about like trying to connect that with, he said that he lost his wife in an accident. And then she's like, oh, is that where you hurt your face? And he has a moment where he just like takes a deep breath. He says nothing, and he basically is like, you'll be leaving soon. I think we know each other well enough. And I'm like, that's a great line. Because he's basically, and every time Antonio speaks, he's so calm. He has no like anger or upsetness in his voice. He's just basically like saying it like it is. And it's just like, I'm basically, in a very nice way, he told Carol, I am not going to talk to you about that. But I put in my notes, I was like, Carol asks too many questions, surprise, and she pushes him away. Meanwhile, she's of course trying to get on his good side, because she's got to figure out a way to get this solar panel. They've got these little solar panels that the town uses, and it looks to be like they're with like just about every other building has one, so that they're all kind of connected together to get, a little bit of power off of them. And before he left, Daryl's like, yeah, we're taking one of those solar panels too. And she's like, really? We are? Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, we need it. And so clearly there's this sense that over the entirety of the episode that Carol is being, she's being friendly and curious anyway. But on top of it, she's trying to be nice because she wants help from them. Like, she's trying to figure out, how can I get that solar panel and have them not hate me? Like, maybe if they're my friend or what, like, it just felt like there was a little bit of an ulterior motive to her needing to get closer to Antonio. And so when she pushes him away, I'm like, well, you're not going to get a solar panel that way.
Well, and when he comes out and sees the blood, she's like eyeballing it, like trying to figure out, how am I going to get it down, right? She's like,
Right.
she's like formulating, like, how do I get up there? What do I kind of do? And then he comes out and sees her, and she immediately is like, oh, nope, nothing to see here.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's when he's like, oh, you're bleeding, and so she's just like, let's just change the subject and talk about you.
Yeah. Let's pivot to something else.
Yes,
Absolutely.
I was not standing out here eyeballing your solar panel. No, I don't know what you're talking
No.
about.
And it's great because there's his solar panel, and then there's another one on the other side of the courtyard that looks like it's connected to somebody else's, like, apartment or home. And so she's just eyeing them both and trying to figure out, like, how do I do this? Do I take his? Do I take somebody else's?
Yeah.
How are we going to make this work? Yeah,
right.
It's really great. It's great. When they sort of pivot away from this scene, we get Valentina with Daryl and Roberto back at the sailboat, sort of inspecting it. And it's in rough shape. It looks like it's got like a big gouge in the front where it hit the rocks when it was coming in for its landing. And then, she's trying to be realistic, because Daryl's just like, oh, we can just patch that. She's like, you can't just patch a hole. Like, yeah. She's trying to, temper their expectations pretty much. And then they inspect the back of the boat, and the rudder is broken. And he's like, well, we can fix it. And she basically is like, you can't fix what's broken on here. It's just not possible. And he's like, well, we got to get a replacement then. And she's trying to do her level best to be like, listen, this isn't probably going to work very well, and we're going to put all this effort into it, and you're probably going to end up smashed back on our rocks again, so what's the point? Her first reaction when she's like, well, where are you trying to go? And he's like, America, and she laughed at him, because she knows, like, they want to do a personal sailboat from Spain all the way to America. It feels a little, I don't know, foolhardy and long. But so she, inspects the boat. She does her good diligence there. But then when he's like, we gotta replace it, she admits, there's a place where you could get another one. It's possible. And he's like, great, he'll take me. Because Roberto's like, oh, I know where we could go to look for one. Great, let's go. But then that's the moment where Roberto decides, he's like, no, I've done all of these things for you. You need to see my demands or whatever. And Daryl's like, your demands? He's like, yeah, when you leave, you need to take me and Justina with you, or else you're on your own. And Daryl has this funny moment where he's like, I guess you're on your own. I guess I'm on my own then.
Yeah, right. He's like, nope, I ain't doing it.
But then Valentina backs everything up, and she's like, yeah, but you'll be on your own without my gas, without my truck. You have, this is what you need to do. You need to agree to take these two to America. And he's like, ugh, God, fine. If it'll shut you up, I'll take you with. So they leave to go look there. And then again, now we're going back to Salas del Mar. And there's this really, it starts out really funny when Carol hears voices.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, what are these voices from? And then she hears, it sounds like someone's in danger.
Someone screams, and so you're like, and it's almost like, uh-oh, here come the fish tanks.
Yeah, you're like, what is happening? And, when she goes out into the courtyard and you can't see, everything looks fine. There's no, like, danger or whatever. But then it sounds like it's coming from inside one of the buildings on the other side of the courtyard. So she walks across and she listens at the door and she can hear something. And she just sort of, like, goes in and she bursts in. There's a curtain. She bursts, puts the curtain aside, like, and it's a movie. Yep. It's Antonio just sitting there watching movies.
Like you do.
Like you do. And I really appreciated this scene because it was probably the best sort of instance of seeing, like, deep into who Antonio is as a person. And he admitted that, from the first days of the apocalypse, he dragged Roberto with him to all these different art house movie theaters and saved all of the prints that you could find. And there's a shot where they show a bookcase that has a ton of like reels just like sitting there that he's clearly gotten from these, art house movie theaters. And he makes this great speech to Carol when he talks about how, when the apocalypse is over, people are going to be looking for some type of history of who my people were. And to be fair, like, this isn't like he's sitting and watching like some famous American movie. He's watching classic Spanish language, Spanish made movies. And so he's making a statement here saying, like, in the future, our children's children will be able to know who we are or who we were as a people before all of this craziness. And, this will tell them, this will help them know who we were as a people. And it's so lovely because, if you at all like any type of art, then that's definitely what will survive, years and years after you're gone, a painting that you made will linger on, a book that you wrote, and those are the things that, really mean something to a society. So I thought that it was a really, really cool scene to sort of place in the middle of this, apocalypse. And it was a really good window into learning more about Antonio. I really liked that. So.
Yeah, I did too. I was looking at the movies and I'm like, was wondering, did they film the movies themselves? You know what I mean? Or did they actually find, old films and pay for the rights to show them? And I have not seen online anyone answer that question directly, and so it wouldn't. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they like went out and cast and did it themselves and shot, those couple of scenes, because we've seen that before. I mean, that happens in other shows and movies and things as well. So it's not a foreign idea. But yeah, I really like that idea that this guy, he's a cinephile. And rather than like preserving, poetry or, works of art in terms of paintings or sculptures, with him, the thing that is important is these movies and as like you said, a way of showing, the next generation, what was your culture like, and that's how he said it. I thought it was really, really interesting. It made his character just much, much cooler to me because, I'm a movie guy too. So I was just like, yep, I would be sitting in there watching those things every damn day too, if I could. So.
Yeah, no kidding. I just think it's really nice that, they've done a really good job, and especially with this series, if you think about it, because they did spend time in France talking about like these famous paintings, and who has control of them. And then we saw, I can't remember her name, but the gal that was in charge in France, Caudron was working with, that she worked at the Louvre, and there's just this really good like emphasis on the arts for this series in particular. And it just felt very natural because we had already been there with a couple of other moments in previous seasons, and I really, really liked it. So the only thing that you can follow up a beautiful story about, leaving some type of, art history to your children's children for, to keep your society sort of going. The best thing to follow that up is a scene where there are waterlogged and barnacle-ridden walkers. I mean, that's the only natural thing you can do next.
Exactly right. You have to. I mean, you just have to jump from that one extreme to the other. I agree. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. It's almost a rule. Like, it's an unwritten rule, but it's a rule. So that's what we do. We jump from there to Roberto and Daryl making it to this boatyard where they're going to try and find a spare rudder that they can take back with them to fix the sailboat with. Part of me wanted to be like, listen, forget about the sailboat, because as we saw, when it gets windy, it like you could hit yourself with the boom as it comes around, like. there were all these other types of boats there. I wanted to be like, find an engine and take one of these. Like, go and grab one of these boats that are there, not the sailboat. Because the sailboat is very specific. And like Julian said, you need to have the skill. Whereas, like, you know, you turn on a motor and just drive your boat, like, you're just gonna go. And I understand you'd have to deal with having gas with you and all that other stuff. But still, because they were around all these other boats, I couldn't help but go, wouldn't that one work better? And how about that one? Wouldn't that one work better?
When we see Julian's boat does have a motor. I mean, it has a propeller backed by the rudder. So my guess would be that you know, by the time, you know, they were ready to get out of London, you know, he didn't have any gas, he didn't have any fuel for it. So, or maybe it doesn't work, maybe it's, you know, it needs maintenance or something. So you would have to hope, and we'll see what happens as this goes along, but my thought would be is that once they get the boat repaired and they refloat it in the water, you know, that Daryl's going to try and get the engine to work and maybe have Valentina help him with that. And maybe that's what she meant by, you know, you need my ethanol, which is not so much to drive her truck around as it is to, if you want me to fill up the tank of your boat so you have an engine to use, take the kid with you or whatever. I mean, when they were using it, they were just sailing it, but it does have an engine in it. So, but I thought the same thing too, and I'm like, you know, my guess is the reason these boats are here is because they don't work. you know.
But fix them. Like, put your time and effort into fixing a boat that might be a little more solid.
Right.
That's just my assumption. So.
Yeah, I agree. I had the same kind of thought when I'm walking around, and I'm like, you know, well, maybe one of those doesn't have like a big freaking hole in it, you know? And you could just like fix it up like in other ways or something. But yeah.
Well, Daryl didn't care. He wasn't swayed by all these other boats that were there. They found a sailboat that was sort of like half in the water, half out of the water, and it had a functioning rudder that they just needed to get off the boat, which they did with like a sledgehammer, and they banged it a lot. And I loved the like foreshadowing moment when they showed like the camera underwater and you were hearing like the percussive like bang from them hitting the rudder, and you're knowing like they're not just making noise on land, but it's projecting under the water, and you can hear and feel like sort of that percussive noise. And you're like, okay, this doesn't bode well. Clearly there's going to be some walker action in this water. And I was right. And so these, first it's just one ghoul, and then later there's like three more that almost overpower Roberto. But the first one was great because he just sort of lumbers toward Roberto, and he's like all like swollen, and he's kind of like grayish white, and he's got all these like barnacles and like weird like sea things attached to it. It's so great looking, so great. And then there's all these other walkers that were like sort of stuck in the seaweed back on land and whatever. So there's this whole like mini herd thing that sort of comes to fruition, all because they had to get the rudder and like bang it and make a lot of noise. So but I see you made comments about the bloated water ghouls as well, so let's chat about how we think those looked, whether they were effective. How did you like them?
I thought they were great. I loved the color, I think, the most. You know, that they were like whitish, almost kind of bluish tint to them. And like you said, you know, I think waterlogged is a really good descriptor. You know, when they pop up out of the water, and you're just like, oh yeah, these people have been under the water for a long time. You know, because they were just all. I mean, it was like you know, you just knew that flesh was all just if you were to touch it, it'd just come right off in your hands, kind of a thing. It was just. It was wonderfully disgusting, I thought, and I also agree with you too when we hear Daryl's got like a metal, like a ball peen hammer or something, and he's
Yeah.
trying to knock this rudder out of its like housing so they can remove it, and you're getting the sound of that underwater. For me, I had very flashbacky moments to Jaws 2.
Yes.
When when Brody's pounding on the cable with the oar to try and draw the shark, and you hear it underwater, that kind of tong tong tong, that sound. And of course they went the extra step of making diffusing the sound so it would sound like that the hammer sound would be if you were underwater. How does the water affect the sound wave, and it changes the whole it sounds different, right, when you're underwater.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciated that, but I definitely had those little like Jaws 2 moments of like yeah, you're calling something here. It's just like stop. And I for a moment I kind of had a bit of like, man, Daryl just again did a thing where he didn't like walk around the boats and like bang on them to try and see, are there any walkers nearby? They just went straight in there and started looking at the boats. And I mean, I get it, he's focused on getting the boat repaired, but it's like, there are basic safety things that you would think the guy that survived as long as he had would do. But maybe he felt that it was such a small little yard and there was only like 5 or 6 boats there that he's like, yeah, there's nothing here. But yeah, this was certainly like the set piece action sequence of the episode, and
Right.
And I thought they handled it really well. I did. Daryl, of course, we didn't mention it, but Daryl just took one of Antonio's rifles and like this huge bandolier full of ammunition. I'm like, sure, they'll be fine with you taking that. You go right ahead. But he does. And so he's got like this Winchester, lever action rifle that he uses to shoot a whole bunch of the ghouls. And of course, Roberto goes back into the water because he like dropped the rudder when they finally pulled it out, because the ghouls kind of surprised him, and so then he almost gets bitten again. And that was the guy that I was the most afraid of in this whole sequence, because I'm like, yeah, nothing's gonna happen to Daryl. But anybody around Daryl that's not named Carol, they're in danger. They're the ones that could possibly have something happen. So, but yeah, I thought they looked great. I thought they were, the effects were great, and the whole sequence really worked. And it was kind of like the exciting part of the episode, really. I mean, in terms of action, there really wasn't all that much that went on other than this. So yeah, I really liked this bit.
Yeah, what's funny is it was done really well. It was really believable, and I liked that there was like an extra bit of menacing with the fact that Roberto was like up to like mid-thigh in the water when he was trying to find because for the first walker that popped out, he dropped the rudder. And then when they fought back all these other walkers that were on the land, and Daryl's like, don't go back for it. And he goes back for it. So he's in the water when the others come up, and it's not clear, like, did they grab him, did they get to him or whatever. So it wasn't until Roberto was walking out of the water with Daryl and they showed him from behind, I was actually fully expecting to see like some type of mark on the back of his leg, and he's like bleeding, and he just didn't know it because like in the adrenaline of the moment he didn't know he got caught or whatever. Because like you were saying, anyone who's not Daryl or Carol, they're on the chopping block.
You would think.
Yeah, and so Roberto was really the only person in danger in that scene, but it was still very exciting because of that. It's much more interesting when there are people who can be in actual real danger.
Yes.
But yeah, it was, even though it worked out the way you sort of were expecting it to work out, it still was, exciting, and it got your heart racing just a little bit, and it's cool. I'm glad it was there because, like you were saying, it really was the only, like, action-oriented scene of the whole episode, and it's really the only scene of the episode as well that made you feel like any type of danger in any moment. So it was, I really liked it as well. And like you said, that the color of the ghouls was really the thing that they got really well done.
Mm-hmm.
They just had like this chalky look to them.
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
You know, they looked like, you know, when you keep your fingers in the water for too long and they come and they're like white and like wrinkly and whatever, and that's what they looked like. They were really bright white and very wrinkly looking. So yeah.
And then in the little featurette, they kind of showed some behind the scenes of that sequence, and you see a couple of the whether they're stunt people or actors that are the water ghouls, and like they like the one he or she had like a little oxygen tank, and then like they would like kind of, because again the aesthetic, right, and so they had like a very special kind of a mouthpiece that would fit into its mouth, because obviously its mouth is all prosthetic and everything, and so they do that, and then it's so great because it like slowly sinks under the water, the bubbles. And it's like, all right, he's ready.
Like zombie bubbles.
And it's like, all right, let's start rolling, people. The zombies are under the water. So yeah, I thought that was really kind of cool little sequence to see. It's like, yep, that's how they do it. So yeah.
Oh, really, really well done. And yeah, if you haven't had a chance, folks, to watch the featurette, because I don't think they show it on the broadcast version. It's only
I think it's on the website.
It's only on the website version, but they also splice them up separately. So if you only watch it on the broadcast version, you can just go to AMC and sign stuff on your own. Like, just watch that. It's like 4 or 5 minute little featurette. But really, really interesting this week. Lots of really interesting stuff to be inside the water. And they talked a lot about finding their locations and things like that, and how they made it work really well for them. So just very, very cool. We then get a really, I don't want to say it's a bad scene. Justina does the thing that you just like, no, what are you doing? She just very innocently was looking for a bandage because she pricked her finger while she was sewing with her grandmother. And her grandmother's like, the key's on your uncle's desk. The bandages are in, because he obviously must keep supplies like all locked up, which I don't blame him. And then Dingling, she's like looking in drawers trying to find, bandages. She finds the bandage, but she puts her hand up to sort of brace herself, and it like clicks a little. And, curiosity does kill a cat, So Ding Dong decides to like, press into it because it's like a release, there's like a secret release to this little drawer. And I think we were talking about it before, that it's like, if something's hidden and it's not your place to be looking for it, shouldn't you just keep it there?
She should have just closed that thing and just went right back out with the bandage. That's what she should have done.
As soon as she realized that it was like a secret compartment, she should have just been like, nothing that's in there is any of my business.
Yep.
Because my uncle is in charge of this town. It could be something really, scandalizing. It could be about anybody. It could be anything. Dude, it could be intravenous drugs that he uses on the side. Like, who the hell knows? Whatever it is, that's his office. It's none of my business. But she doesn't do that. She opens it up and then finds out what can only be considered like, it's so obvious that he was rigging the pig thing. Just because there's not a lot of girls in that town of age. And so for Justina to like avoid it for like 5 years in a row feels like she's got the best luck known to man.
Yeah.
Well, turns out she doesn't. He has figured out a way every year that once they take their little ribbons and tie it off onto the pig, that he must substitute it with something else or what have you. Put a different name on there. And so he has kept her little little ribbons that they embroider their names on for the last 5 or 6 years, and they're all in that drawer hidden away so no one can find them. And so she finds it and is so upset she just doesn't even know what to do with herself, because she feels guilty because, you know, it seems like she's known the girls the years before, but it feels like this year that she's actually really close to Alba. Like, she's a very good friend of hers. Mm-hmm. So she's sad that Alba's going anyway, but now she's like, she feels guilty because Alba should not be going. Right. Because, you know, in all fairness, it should have been her. So, Justina, what are you doing? But she goes rushing over to Roberto's because she wants to talk to him, and she encounters Carol, and then you wrote about that scene. So let's chat about that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, I agree that, you know, she was, even before she found the ribbons, she was having massive survivor's guilt. You know, for sure. Every year, it's like, it's not fair that I've been doing this forever, and yet I, have been lucky, and I'm using air quotes, that it wasn't me, it was always somebody else, and I had to watch as these other kids that I grew up with and knew were being sent away to God knows what, and right. Then to have your, the rug pulled out from under you of like, well, actually, it's not that you were just lucky. It's
there's a reason.
There it is. Which, like if she was feeling, like 100 pounds of guilt on her, once she found those ribbons, it like went up to like, 10,000 pounds. I mean, now she's, faced with the, well, yeah, not only am I a survivor, I'm like, a cheater survivor, although she didn't know, right? She wasn't in on it, but it still didn't make it any less painful. And so, she meets Carol, and they're, talking, and of course, like the whole time, like as this discussion is going on, I'm like watching the scene, and I'm like, zip it, Carol, just zip it. Just stop. Yep. Stop talking. Excuse.
Just like literally, just all she should have done is just like reached out and like patted her.
It'll be okay.
I understand. Yeah. You're so sad. What can I do to help?
Yeah. I got it.
It's okay. It's okay. You're fine. You're okay.
Do you have a ladder? I got to steal a solar panel. I mean, literally, that's what she should have said. I mean, they're Justina kind of like unburdens herself on Carol about what she's feeling and how all the survivor guilt and all that stuff, and right. Carol, basically she says like, I almost feel like it's my fault, and Carol's like, it's not, none of this is fair, it's so frustrating. I know, feeling so helpless and angry, so much so that you start to feel like it's your own fault. Like if you could do something different, or if you could switch places. Wrong thing to say, Carol. Carol. You could do it, or you could fix it, but sometimes you can't. Carol obviously doesn't know about the cheating, right? She doesn't know any of this stuff. And I get it. It's coming from a good place, right? But really, shut the fork up, Carol, please. I mean...
Oh, do you think she didn't tell her the whole thing?
Yeah, I didn't.
Oh, I didn't get that sense. I felt like she told Carol everything, like unburdened herself. Like that's how I felt. But I mean, either way, it works. Either way, Carol still should have shut her mouth, no matter what. Whether she knows or doesn't know.
Yeah, see, because like I almost thought in the sequencing, she met Carol first and had that discussion, and then she went and found the ribbons with her grandmother. That's how I thought it went in the episode.
No, it was the other way around, because as soon as she realized that she was a fraud, she went right over to talk to Roberto about it because she was so upset, and that's the only person she could trust, and she came upon Carol there. So, no. But just because, you're totally right though, just because she went there after she found out about the betrayal, it doesn't mean she told Carol. I got the sense that she did, but it's entirely possible she didn't say anything.
Okay.
It still doesn't change what
Carol said to her. It's just like, dude, Carol, please, yeah. But again, she does use the phrase, if you could switch places, and so you're just like, oh god, Carol, right? It's so bad. Oh, and as awful, and you're kind of kicking yourself for it. You're just like, yep, this totally tracks. I mean, this was
God,
not
yeah.
like any sort of revelation moment at all. It was just sort of like, Carol's being Carol again.
Oh yeah, it's the most Carol scene that ever caroled, as that's how the kids say it.
Oh God,
days. Yeah, so bad. So she, stumbles in true Carol fashion. Daryl's like, don't get involved. She gets so involved in the most inappropriate way she could, in just the few hours that Daryl's gone, and she totally fucks up everything.
Oh my God, really?
Well,
really, yeah.
Well done.
Well, what's great is that, I mean, it's like, Daryl specifically told you to not get involved and work on getting out of here. That was the one thing he told you to do. And he's been gone literally for like 4 hours, and you've completely messed everything up. I mean, it's just like,
Yep. She did the exact opposite of what he wanted her to do. I mean, Daryl, to be fair, you should know better, because Carol is kind of a loose cannon when it comes to anything that involves emotions, and you knew she was already kind of there with the emotions. So, I mean, it's not Daryl's fault, but, he should know better than to trust her to be by herself. He should have brought her with.
Yeah, it's Nick's fault. Sorry, it's Daryl's fault that he didn't take her along. That was his mistake.
Yeah.
He and the fact that he watched her have that little moment with Antonio at the beginning, and he still didn't take her with him. That is totally his fault. So yeah, when he gets back, if he's angry at anybody, it should be at him, not at her.
Yeah, look in a mirror, would you? So we get one really, really cute little scene at sort of the tail end of the, Roberto and Daryl stuff. On their way to the boatyard, they came across this, religious statue of St. James, because where they're located, they're on the Camino de Santiago, which is a really popular pilgrimage for people to do. It's really well done. There's a really great movie that Martin Sheen did all about doing that pilgrimage trail, and runs all the way through Spain and I think parts of Portugal. Mm-hmm. And so they have a statue to commemorate it, because it's on this trail. And people, Roberto explains to Daryl that people leave, stones and personal objects, and they say a prayer, and then he tells Daryl about the history and why the people do it. So when they're going past it again on their way back, Daryl has this really cute moment where he stops the car. He doesn't say anything to Roberto, and he goes over to the statue, and he's like rooting around in his pocket. And I was curious. I figured he was going to leave something, but I really thought he was going to leave something because he's been thinking a lot about Isabel. Mm-hmm. I was wondering if he was going to leave something that was important to her that he had with him. But instead, it was different. It was the Rubik's Cube, which I thought was really, really interesting. And I love the way he said, like, I hope he got another one, Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it was a good little scene. You included it as well. I think it was, it was meant to be, it tugs at the heartstrings. It did everything it was supposed to. It was a cute little scene. And it just reminds you that, he might be somewhere in America right now.
Right.
Who knows? Maybe he's in Alexandria.
He could be eating ice cream within the Commonwealth for all we know.
He could be.
Yeah. I appreciated that scene just because it still acknowledged, what happened in previous seasons,
right.
and which normally on these kind of shows, it's very rare, that stuff that happens in one season, they very rarely, unless like a character comes back, and, you can always tell that's going to happen when in like the previously you see like a clip from like 2 seasons mm-hmm. ago, and you're like, I wonder why they're showing that. And it's like, but I mean, even then, it's very rare that the characters will mention or talk about or even think about stuff that happened in previous years. And the fact that clearly what happened in France has affected both of them, and certainly what happened in the Channel has affected both of them. And
For sure.
and they're not just like, well, we're done with that, let's move on to Spain. It's like, nope, it's all kind of one big experience. I really appreciated that. As much as that kid was annoying, I appreciated that.
Yeah, and the thing that I like best about it is that because they're not letting that storyline kind of die off, that they're still keeping it sort of, not necessarily fresh, but it's at top of mind. You know what I mean? That they just had this experience, that it's still fairly fresh, and it's sort of guiding, their choices right now, because they're trying to, they want to get home anyway, but a little added thing is, maybe we get to see the kid again,
Right.
But what I like about it too is, they've already said that at the end of that they've been extended for one more season, and then I think they've already said they're going to end at that season for Daryl Dixon. So here's hoping that when they finish, it finishes off with like some type of reunion in America, and perhaps seeing the kid again is part of that. That'd be really great.
Maybe
if they could do that.
Maybe as they're sailing across the Atlantic, they'll see like the tail section of a plane floating in the water, and be like, well, that wraps up the kid.
Don't have to worry about him no more.
That's right.
Yeah. So I loved that. We do get, you included it here. I wanted to make sure we talk about, we get this great scene with Antonio and Carol where he makes dinner.
Oh God,
and, yeah. You included it, so let's chat about that.
Yeah, well, and just going back when Carol like hears the movies and goes to investigate, she's like in the pantry, and she's like just taking stuff and just putting it in like her knapsack or her backpack or whatever, like jars of preserves and canned food. Just literally just stop, whatever she wants, right? And then she goes and does all the movie stuff. So then later on in the day, she comes into the kitchen, and he's like making this like massive feast. It's all like a full cooked meal. And she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you were having company. I'll leave." And he's like, "No, you are the company." Yeah. And so they sit down and they eat, and it's so great because he makes it apparently to her that because he's like, "Hey, you know what? I have like an extra solar panel if you guys would want to take it with you." And she's like,
"How do I say this judiciously?"
Yeah, and she's like, "Really? That'd be really great." It's just like, Carol, he knows, okay? He totally knows. And then he goes on to say, like, basically pointing out to her that he knows that she's been taking the food out of his pantry, the guns out of the garage. All the stuff that they've taken down. My comment was, I said that Antonio lets Carol know that he knows she's been taking everything that isn't nailed down, which it is. And she is just like, caught with the hand in the cookie jar, and it's just like, "I'm really sorry." She's like, you know what I mean? And she's really trying to like, "I hated doing it. Daryl was telling me we got to get all this." And he kind of tells her, "You know what? You saved my son out in the, out by the river there. So that kind of gives you a pass to all that." Right. If I have to give you some of my stuff, it's a fair trade, which I thought was
for sure
very understanding of him. But at the same time, I just love that scene where he's like, if there's anything I can give you, like the food out of my pantry. And then she's just like, "Uh-oh."
Whoopsie.
Yeah. Oh.
Was that me?
Oh yeah. And the look on her face was so great. And we get two great like Carol looks in that scene, because we get that one.
Oh yeah.
And then Antonio starts talking about Roberto and Justina and how Justina and Alba are really close, and that she feels really guilty, so guilty about surviving so many years of Frenda, that he's like, "I'm always afraid that she's going to what's the American word? Volunteer." And the look on her face, because then she realizes the talk she just had with Justina. She's like, oh no.
I've done another bad thing.
Yep. Oh yeah. And then literally it smash cuts to them, and they're like running into town trying to find her, and they run into the grandma. And the grandma's got this like bewildered, almost like tears in her eyes look, and she's like, "Where's Justina?" And she doesn't say anything. They're like, "Oh no!" And you're just like, "Carol, it is over. You did it. You know, you really done it this time. Yeah,
you're really forked up."
And so they race back into like the town square, and we hear Fetty, and he's kind of making an announcement of like the Alcazar and his men are leaving because they're unhappy with, you know, kind of the way things have been playing out here. And then he adds on, and, you know, despite my disagreements, my niece has volunteered to take Alba's place. And we see Alba is like out standing with her mom, and then of course Carol is like running around and in like the really fancy antique car that they were riding in. We see the queen to be, and then sitting next to her is Justina, and so clearly she's gone and said, "Take me." So yeah, and then they drive.
Good job, Carol.
They drive away, and there's Carol left going, "Is there anything else I can do? Does anyone need any help? Hello, I'm
like
right
maybe
here."
I could like push somebody down on the ground, or maybe like slap you across the face or something. Like...
I could set something on fire, perhaps. You know, yeah. I just you're just like, oh man, Carol. Yep. And of course, we, you know, intercut with this scene, we get Daryl and Roberto, and they're driving the truck back. And again, my thought was they're heading back to the town. They're heading back
and then they'll go to Valentina's when in the daylight.
In the morning or whatever. And of course, Daryl, because the kid went back and got the rudder after he dropped it in the water and kind of risked his life and all that stuff, Daryl is now kind of on board with the whole, you're coming with us. And, you know, he's like, "I think you're really going to like Ohio." And the kid's like, "Well, what's Ohio?" And he's like, "It's like New Jersey." Because the only thing the kid knows about America is New Jersey because Bruce Springsteen is there, which I thought was kind of amusing.
I learned from the boss.
The boss, you know, and he's like, "Yeah, I heard of him." That's Daryl's line. But Daryl says, "Yeah, it's like Jersey, but flat," you know, and so he's clearly envisioning, you know, having these two go with and then taking them to the Commonwealth, right? I mean, that's got to be what he's you know, thinking. But it's just so funny because they're now in a very hopeful, happy kind of a situation of it's going to be you and Justina and me and Carol. And of course, back at the town, Carol's like, "Oh crap, Justina's gone."
Yeah. Like, how can I mess this up more?
Oh yeah.
I don't think you can, Carol. You've sort of she's done such a good job of messing it up.
You really have. You've got the high score here. There's no, you know, there's nothing you can do to increase your potential score here.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Whew, wow. So before we finish up our chat for the episode, is there anything, I feel like I talked about all of my points. Is there anything that we skipped over that you want to make sure we chat about before we finish up?
There's one quick scene, and I can't remember where it is in the episode, but we get the Queen to Be and Paz.
Oh, yeah. I didn't include it because it was so quick. Yeah.
They're being very friendly, and are, you know, in bed together. And the big reveal is that when the Queen to Be is like, "Well, you know, I gotta go. He's gonna miss me," and she kind of gets up, and Paz sees her back. She has like either bruises or scars or something on her back, and they don't come right out and say it, but it's certainly kind of suggested that like the Alcazar is kind of like abusing her in like, you know, beating her or something, right? Now, something icky. And so this is, you know, not sitting well with Paz, obviously, because, you know, she loves her and all that.
Of course.
And I think it's just a little bit more kind of setting us up or setting up the show for the next episode or two, when at some point, Daryl and Carol are going to be like, okay, we're going to go get Justina, who wants to help. And so now we're kind of showing there are other characters here who disagree with the Alcazar and the whole a friend a thing. And so are they going to be willing to throw in and help them? Yes, probably. And so, because it's going to be Roberto, he's going to go. And Valentina, I think if she doesn't go, she'll probably like give them resources to help them, like a car and guns or whatever. And I think that, Paz clearly is going to be part of that group because, she wants to go and kill that dude because obviously he's hurting the queen to be. So, but anyway,
she wants to try and rescue her as well.
Yes,
I think will be part of her motivation.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, again, it was like you said, it was a real quick scene, but it did happen, and again, everything that happened this episode, you're just kind of like, yep, saw that. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
So yeah, and again, it was very well made. It was well acted. I'm not saying it wasn't. It just overall, it was kind of very much like, yeah, okay, that was an episode. Good, So
this scene that you brought up is actually one of the reasons that I found like the episode kind of, it was fine. It was an episode. Was mostly because, Daryl and Carol, we went back and forth between their storylines. But this moment with like the Queen to Be and Paz, it was this one tiny scene. It was like 3 minutes and then it was done. And then we never saw either one of those characters again for the rest of the episode. I think we get a glimpse of her in the car at the end.
At the very
the Queen to Be.
We get the Queen to Be, and then we see Paz, and like there are like tears like streaming down her face as the cars drive away. But you're right. They never come back to them until the very end.
But part of me felt like, and this is going to sound terrible, but I don't know that they needed to even have this scene. It was clear that they were intimate, that they had love for each other, and they just couldn't be together.
Like physical love or platonic love?
No physical love.
Oh. Okay.
But I feel like if you took that scene out and you just showed Paz crying at the end, you would still understand. You would still get that. So I felt, because we didn't go back to them, I was like, well, why did we put it there? It just didn't. I think without the idea of there being some abuse happening, Paz would still be motivated to go and rescue her, no matter what. This puts a little fire in her belly, for sure, so if they felt like they needed to add in some justification, I get that. But I think it was clear prior to this scene that she loves her and would really kind of do anything to be with her and, be able to safely get her away from El Alcazar. So, but yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Anything else? Anything we should gab about before we take our break here?
I don't think so. I think that pretty much, was everything that happened. And I think I'm good.
All right, folks. We're going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, we're going to discuss our listener feedback and what's coming up on the podcast.
So everyone, please stick around, because we's will be right back.
Now there's about 20 of them out there.
What will we do?
Don't worry, we're safe in here. They'll never get in.
Why is it that in every zombie story, people always think that their safe haven is invulnerable?
I know. It's like, hello, the walkers are totally gonna get in. You better get ready for it.
No! Diane, get behind me. No, it's not stopping.
Do something, Jack!
And another thing, how come nobody in a zombie story has ever seen a zombie story?
Do you know how much time in human life would be saved if just one person in the group was up on the genre?
What do we do?
Aim for the head.
What?
Aim for the head.
You heard them. Aim for the head.
Quick, Diane, I think we should try and fix the barricades.
I think we should listen to them.
Now, that's the first good idea they've had all episode.
I still don't think they're gonna make it.
Aim for the Head, a horror apocalypse entertainment podcast. Join hosts Diana and Steve as they recap and discuss the best of horror, sci-fi, fantasy, and apocalyptic entertainment. Aim for the Head, available wherever you listen to podcasts. Find us on Instagram and Blue Sky.
Hey there, this is Greg Nicotero, and you're listening to Aim for the Head podcast with Diana and Steve. And don't forget to always aim for the head, because body shots, they really just don't work.
Hey there, everybody. We are back. We're going to jump right into our listener feedback that we received for this episode. And I know this is going to come as a surprise, but we got some feedback from Erica Price.
What?
What? Shocking. And so she left us some feedback via the Facebook, as per usual. And before she talked about the episode, she let us know about a certain something she found online. So she writes in and says, I found this offered at my local World Market. And she shared a picture, and it is a jar of pork frankfurters. And it looks like, I want to say, is it German? Let's look at the picture a little better.
Yeah.
I think it's German.
Well, I mean, frankfurters, you know, that's...
Yeah. Well, they do enjoy the, you know, the different...
The
encased meats.
Yeah, Germans are big cased meats people. There's no doubt.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. I love World Market, and I love buying their, like, international foods there, so that's not surprising. I don't think I want to buy these.
No.
But I have a funny feeling that maybe, like, frankfurters in a glass jar is probably more appetizing somehow than frankfurters in a tin.
Yes. Yeah, it's not quite what we have on the show, because it's like a pickle jar, kind of a jar with, instead of pickles, it's got hot dogs. But still, yeah, I agree, it's better than if it were like in a can, but not by much.
yeah, it's a very, very, very small difference. So she says, I didn't think they looked appetizing enough to spend money on, though. And I agree, because it's $8.99 for that jar of hot dogs. I do hope Carol's hot dogs in a can make it through to the end, and maybe they can share them with Rick and Michonne. Oh,
that's right.
Look at dreams. Dreams are things you should have in your life. So she continues on with some thoughts on the episode and says, I like Fede's stance on Daryl and Carol. The sooner they hit the road, the better. Something makes me think that that's not going to go so smoothly, however. The silver-haired lady cracks me up. Death trap. I think Antonio has eyes for Carol. I was going to talk about that, and I didn't include it in my notes, but I'm curious if there's like some warm feelings there between either one of them or both of them. Did you get that sense?
I thought that, I if anything, I thought she might be having some feelings for him because, you know, he lost his wife and he's trying to raise his son all by himself. I mean, all that kind of thing. So I think there are definitely some like that scene when the scenes they had together, like when they were watching the movie and then when they had the dinner and all that, it's like, are they going to try and start something? Is that what we're seeing here, the beginnings? Because I could totally see it.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So Erica, you're not seeing things. I agree with you that there's some eyes going on back and forth. She continues and says, if there's a whole dang boatyard, why not just take a whole other boat?
Right? Hey, hello.
Look, I had the same thought. What the hell, Roberto? All that work by Daryl, and you just tossed the rudder into the sea? Well, at least he went back for it. Of course Justina goes with the king. How else could we make more troubles to entice Daryl and Carol to stay? This Romeo and Juliet story is fun. Even Roberto and Justina's names are similar. I love the rustic look of this show, and even the bloated sea walkers are very cool. I agree with all of that, and thanks for writing in, Erica, as always, and including your jar of hot dogs. It's not often that you can say that and thank somebody for including their jar of hot dogs, so thank you.
I know. In some states you get arrested.
It's true. So keep that on the down low if you could. So coming up next week on the podcast, we'll be discussing episode 4. Title of next week's episode is La Justicia Fronteriza. The translation is Border Justice. And there's no description yet out of the episode itself, but we did get some clips, And like we were talking about at the top of the episode, it looks like we see the Conan the Barbarian extras again, and that there's some issues with them, going to be a battle between them and Solaz Damar. So it looks like Daryl and Carol are going to be sucked into even more stuff from this town that they don't want to be, but they're going to feel obligated to, I think. So curious.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see what that whole sort of that fight is going to entail. Like, is this like old bad blood, or is this some sort of new thing? Or do these people just raid and pillage everywhere, and this is just who they are? So I'm curious to see what that's all about.
Yeah, what I'm curious to see is, are we to kind of, looking at what happens there, do you think that the Alcazar has kind of pulled out of protecting them, and so they're kind of left to fend for themselves?
I don't know. I think it's not clear, because they, all we get is Justina in the car. So I don't know what the status is of that, but it's certainly in the clips. It doesn't look like anyone is from his group is helping them. So right. Whether that's on purpose or just by happenstance because they were just through the town and it's not like they're going to turn around and come back, or maybe they just don't know what's going on. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, it looks like they're kind of left to fend for themselves, like very like all hands on deck, which is why Daryl and Carol are now involved. So, but yeah, I'm curious to see, hopefully we'll find out next week whether or not they have the support or don't have the support.
Yeah, well, and in the scenes for the sequence, it looks like they like come smashing through that really cool gate.
Yes.
And we see the walkers get involved, so maybe the townspeople kind of let them out, sort of like,
right.
Throw them at them and that kind of thing. You see Daryl is there, and I think there's a shot of the mayor where he's like, we need everyone to help or something, So I agree that it's sort of like, I'm sure Daryl's like, it's not our fight, let's not get involved, but then they're like, we kind of have to, because they're going to overrun the town. And then of course the very last thing we see is that the Conan guys have either a ballista or a trebuchet or a catapult, and they fire like a flaming, whatever it is, into the town, and it like hits one of the vehicles, and it, flames are everywhere and all that stuff. So again, lots of action, lots of excitement, lots of things going on where you're like, okay, wow, what is going on here? So
yeah, hopefully
we'll get a little bit more of the action than we got this week. But again, we'll have to see. It's kind of, the thing you have to remember is that this is the halfway point of the season.
Yeah, so there's still so much more season to go,
There's so much more, but at the same time they can't keep introducing new things because they got to eventually start resolving stuff as at least as much as they're going to for the end of the season. So I don't know, and do you think there's a chance, I guess the best way to ask is, do you think there's a chance that like the Conan guys are fighting Alcazar's people, and that this might ultimately, they might team up with the Solar people? It's sort of like, hey, the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing? Or
I didn't really think about that, but I mean, obviously those guys have more power and might behind them, so maybe that's like the real enemy that they're all fighting. So maybe it's like a tease to make you think that they're the ones that are attacking the town, when it could be El Alcazar's people are doing that instead, because it's not clear. Ooh, and look at you creating questions and wrinkles. Who knows, man?
I was just trying to figure out, what are because those guys are so different than everybody else we've met in Spain.
Right.
And
why?
that they're
Why are they that way?
Yeah, right. And so it's just like, okay, there's got to be a reason, right? There's got to be some, they have some kind of an ethos that we're going to find out about once we get more information on them. But I don't know. That was kind of a thought I had. Because, remember in the first episode when the kids run into the guys in the Hummer, and it's like those guys are not out like patrolling. They're like out looking for trouble.
For sure.
Yeah. And so then my initial thought was, well, this whole thing of the town needs Alcazar's protection.
Yeah. And
the reason why they think they need the protection is that Alcazar's men are out on the roads making them unsafe. Right.
Right.
And so I don't know. I think the Conan guys were real interesting when we first saw them, because we really didn't, learn all that much about them. They just kind of showed up and they looked really cool. And then that was it. So I don't know what to expect. I'm hoping we start to get a little more into it. And obviously we're going to learn something about them next week. So again, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. So we'll chat about that next week. So last week, I talked at length, I'm so sorry, about my love for The Long Walk, and, Steve mentioned when we weren't recording that you were planning on maybe seeing The Conjuring. Did you end up seeing it?
I did. The Conjuring Last Rites. Yes.
Yeah.
And
Thoughts?
No. It's a very, don't get me wrong, there were some creepy moments in it. It's a possession story. If you're familiar at all with the Conjuring universe, and this is supposed to be the last case of the Warrens that they ever did, and the whole thing about it that always for me with this series is that the series, the producers, the filmmakers, they paint the Warrens as these stand-up do-gooders that are above reproach and are honest and forthwith and all these things. And I mean, it is a known fact that they made up everything. Their whole, it's been revealed for a long time now that all of their cases are fake, that they lied, that they did it all to make money. And so knowing that going in, I always am kind of like, okay. You know what I mean? So, they, at the end of the movie, you see they have a daughter and she gets married, and at the wedding there are people from all of the previous Conjuring movies there. So anyone for the that you saw in the first couple of movies are in the they're attending, right? They're in the church and stuff. And then you kind of get the text on the screen where they kind of say what happened to these people, and they talk about how, he eventually had a stroke and then he died, and then the wife lived another 20 years. And then they do this thing where they say, despite some problems, that's as far as they'll go to point out that they're full of crap. But they say, despite that, when they started doing this stuff, it was at a time where they knew they would be ridiculed, which it was the late 60s and early 70s, where their parapsychology was not a thing, and people thought they were quacks because they're quacks. And yet they persevered, and so then they put on the screen many people consider them to be the heroes of parapsychology, and I'm like, but they made it all up, so yeah, I kind of have it's very hard for me to like these movies. I just felt what, I should go see this because it's kind of the big horror movie of the this moment here, and I should see it. And then, like I said, there was some creepy parts to it. I'm not gonna lie. There was some fun moments, but yeah, overall, it was okay. My review would be, if you want to see it, wait till it comes out on streaming or something. Don't waste your money. So
okay, all right.
So yeah.
I can't remember if I saw, because there's so many of these movies. I definitely saw the very first one. in the movie theater
with Lily
Taylor.
Right? And she, by the way, she makes a cameo in this. She's
does
one
she?
Of the people
at the end, nice.
That's in the audience. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that one was fun. I like that one too.
Yeah, that was a good one. I don't think I saw any more after that. If I did, maybe it was one, and I don't think I saw it in the theater. Maybe we watched it streaming at home or something. But yes, I remember seeing it, the original one, on the screen. It was great. It was scary. It was a group of Sarah's coworkers, and we all went together and we went to the movie theater that's on Western, the one that we go to sometimes. And it was great because people like jump scared and everything. It was so much fun. But that's interesting. I did not know much about the lore of them, like that they were, frauds.
The Warrens.
Yeah, I didn't. Well, I know who they are, and I know that they existed, but I didn't know that they were frauds. I didn't know that was something. But I'd never really delved into their stuff, so it's not something I would have come across. So
right. Well, they like, I think like their undoing was they met up with the Lutz family in either, I don't know if it was Massachusetts or Maine, and they ended up, they had a possession issue going on with their house, and of course this became known as the Amityville Horror.
Okay.
Which, was a huge book, and I don't know if the Warrens wrote the book back in the 70s, but it became a huge book, and then it was a massive movie with James Brolin and Margot Kidder.
Yeah.
If you're old of a certain age, you know them. I mean, and it was one of those like terrifying movies, where like the trailer would be like, you might not survive if you see it, all that kind of stuff. And I think there are like 5 or 6 Amityville Horror sequels that have come out since then. So it's like almost like a horror franchise on its own. However, the Lutz family, the people that own the house, they came out, 20 years later and went, yeah, that wasn't real. We made that up. So, and that the Warrens were like called in to help them in the original story. And so then people started going, wait a minute. Because if these people were making it all up and these other people showed up, wouldn't they know that they're making? So yeah, I think that's how it all kind of unraveled for them. But yeah, I like I said, there are definitely some creepy ghosty movie parts in it. But I went on a Wednesday night at the Logan Theater here in Chicago, and they have $5 Wednesdays, so I only paid $5 to see it. And so I feel much better about myself for only having spent $5 to see it. So.
Well, good. I'm glad that you feel good about yourself. That's what we should be looking for in life.
Well, we should be looking at. And I would point out that the Long Walk is at the Logan Theater, but the $5 thing doesn't start for like a week or two. Like for when movies are first released, they won't do the $5 thing. So. I don't think this week, but next week, I'm thinking I will go and enjoy go see the Mark Hamillness of the Long Walk.
Oh, so good. All right. So The Conjuring. All right. So there was a little bit of a thing I saw shared online that I just wanted to sort of throw out there in case people saw it. But I guess there was some interview that was being done with Andrew Lincoln that someone shared on a different Walking Dead like sort of fan group that I'm a part of. And I guess he did this interview. And it's about, I guess he's got some thriller movie coming out or something. I want to say like Netflix or Prime, but don't quote me on that. But he's got some movie coming out, and he was doing some press for that. And of course, people always ask about Walking Dead. And the question that someone asked was, it's such an iconic, role for you. Would you ever consider going back to it? And he said in the interview, of course I would. He's like, in fact, we're talking right now.
Oh.
So, and then, but he like dropped it right after that and didn't give any details. He's like, oh, well, I said too much. I can't say anymore. So, whatever, and dropped it and then said nothing else. But it's part of the interview that he said something like that. And so on this other fan site, they were just sort of talking about it. And it really made me think about, that thing that we were wondering if like Carol knew that he was home, or if Carol had heard that they had found him or whatever. And I'd be really interested to see if they wrap up Daryl Dixon with Daryl. I mean, sure, seeing the kid would be great, but if Daryl gets to see Rick again. Because right now,
it would be cool.
Yeah, because like right now, according to what's going on, like they're either looking for Rick or Rick has been found. I'm not sure timeline-wise where we are, but they're at least looking for Rick. Maybe they haven't quite gotten him back to Alexandria yet, or what have you. But all that's happening, and Daryl doesn't know what's happening. So I think that would be such a really great little bow to sort of put at the top of that package.
There could be a scene where Daryl and Carol get off the boat, and running up to meet them is Rick and Michonne and the 27-year-old Judith.
Yes.
Who has like her own children now.
Her own ass kicker.
Right. As well as RJ, who still won't say anything.
No, but he's still going to have the hat on.
Still have the hat on, right? Even though he's like 35 now,
right?
And there'll be this sort of little like group hug of like the I guess you'd call them the old guard of the Walking Dead finally getting back together. I could see them doing something like that maybe.
Yeah, I mean they worked really hard for doing the whole. They did a really good job of keeping the end of The Ones Who Live secret, and we got the satisfaction of seeing Rick be able to hug Judith and RJ. So, I mean, the fact that they were able to do that makes me feel like they certainly could add him into the mix for Daryl. Even if it's not face-to-face, what if they're like, if it's something like you see his face on a screen somewhere or whatever it may be, or maybe they talk over the walkie or something. Like maybe they're not face-to-face, but there could be something there, but I think that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's totally in the realm of possibility.
Yes,
absolutely.
Especially since they sort of went down that path already. They've already established that they're fine with having like these reunions happening back with our Alexandria / Commonwealth people. So that'd be interesting to see. One little sort of programming note to let people know, and we'll remind you again next week, because not next week when we cover episode 4, but the week after that when we cover episode 5. Steve is going to be out of town for both the Monday and the Tuesday, so we will be covering episode 5. We'll be recording that episode on Wednesday that week. But we'll remind you all, all that it means is it gives you a little extra time to get your feedback in. I'm looking at you, Bev. You should send some feedback in. That's what I'm saying. I'm kidding.
That's good. Bully the listener.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well done.
I'm sorry.
Well
I'm sorry.
done.
Well, she is British, so she understands we're ugly Americans. We don't have really good standing in the world right now. But anyway, so yes, we'll remind you guys again next week as well, but just mark your calendars that you'll have a little extra time to get your feedback in 2 weeks' time. 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Which is also how long I'll be on Mars for, is 2
For your vacation.
2 weeks. Anything else we need to chat about before we wrap this up for people?
I don't think so. I think that's pretty much everything.
Yeah, I agree. I think we really did it. So let's stick a fork in this. We're so glad that you came by to listen with us this week, folks. We hope to chat with you again next week. But until then, as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
Don't forget to always aim for the head.
'Cause those body shots, I'm sorry, they just don't work.
To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTH Podcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed.
I will. And you know what? You enjoy as well. And that's for Steve. And not so much you.
Bye, Sarah.
Wow. That's love, man. That's marriage right there.
You can tell. A lot of love in that conversation.
Yeah.